Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Alex, for warming up the crowd. You're not going to hear about any 8-foot-tall frogmen from me. We're going to talk about Sasquatch here in Massachusetts, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. What brought me here to this event tonight? I got to back up 27 years ago when I was a park ranger for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Back then it was called Department of Environmental Management, DEM, now it's called the DCR. We used to say DEM stood for Don't Expect Much. So it was one of the best jobs that I think anybody could have. You're out in the woods, you're out with campers, you're out with Joe Citizen, and you're getting paid to do it. It was a great job that I had during the summer. My father was friends with Mike Dukakis, so that's how you got these jobs back then. Well, I built up a few years of seniority, and I got moved up to Savoy State Forest, which is one of the largest parks in Massachusetts. That right there is actually the little ranger station. They call it the contact station. I don't know, has anybody been to Savoy State Forest? Except you, Dave, you don't count. Dave goes there all the time. Savoy consists of a campground and about 50,000 acres of woodland. Some of it is protected, some of it gets logged, but for the most part, it's all open for recreation. Savoy is up in the Berkshires, the northern Berkshires. One of the highlights of Savoy State Forest right here is Tannery Falls. If you've ever had a chance to take a ride up there, the road's a little rough to get into, but you look for this sign here, Tannery Falls, and it's quite the day trip in there. I wouldn't go in there at night, and I'm going to tell you why. Let me back up. So in 1992, I was working the night shift, listening to the Red Sox on the radio in my little truck. Part of my job was to make rounds around the area, all by myself, 21 years old, making a loop around the big park. I was about 8 to 10 miles away from the headquarters building at this parking lot to this waterfall. I pulled into the parking lot. It had just rained. There was a big puddle in the parking lot, and there was a trash can tipped over with the trash all around on the ground. So I grabbed a can liner out of the truck to pick up the garbage, and as I exited the truck, I heard some commotion in the woods off to my left. And out comes this 6.5 to 7 foot hairy creature, runs right around the front of the truck, scoops up the garbage like a football, and runs around the side of the truck on me. So I'm like, what is this? I have all the strength to get back into the truck. As I turned, I catch a silhouette of a much taller creature with red eyes reflecting from the taillights, and it let out this curling scream that I'll never forget. It was a combination of a gorilla and a lion all at the same time. I had everything that I could do to get into the truck. I'm shaking. And one of the things I remember after I slammed the doors, I locked the door on the truck. I don't know how much that would have helped me. So I pick up the radio. And this is my only lifeline in this whole park. I'm out here all by myself. If I needed help, it would be an hour till they got to me. And I key up the mic, and I hit the repeater up on Mount Greylock, and I instantly dropped the mic. I said, what in God's name am I going to say is going on up here? And then, boom, something hits the back of the brand new truck with 300 miles on it. And I said, I'm getting out of here. 100 miles an hour all the way back to the headquarters building. Shaking, can't quite grab my thoughts. I was thinking about making a few phone calls. And then I said, what am I going to say? In my night journal, I wrote, unusual event, Tannery Falls. And to this day, that's still written up there in that journal from 1992. So about 2 weeks go down, and my boss says to me, he says, hey, you're not making your rounds. I seen your log. How come you're not going down to the different parts of the park? I said, I think I'm going to go back to the day shift. And he said, well, you're senior guy up here. Why would you want that? I said, I don't really want to talk about it. So he leans back in his chair, and he smiles at me, and he says, you saw something, didn't you? I I said, oh yeah, I said, I saw something. And he goes, tell me about it. So I told him the story, and he goes, oh, I've never heard about two of them. So he reaches over to the filing cabinet, and he pulls out a file about 3/4 of an inch thick that dates back to 1930s of all the sightings from people who have visited the park who have seen these creatures. There's actually a few UFO sightings in there too, but we're not talking about those tonight. So I quit. I worked there for a little bit longer, and I just couldn't go back there anymore. I couldn't function out there at night. People were making fun of me. Ranger Bigfoot's on the job tonight. Hey, seen that Sasquatch lately? People banging on the ranger station, you know. You name it, I heard it all from everybody. And that's kind of how I just kind of forgot about it and put it away. Until, the internet came along, and these group of guys came along. That's my real good friend there, Dave McCullough. He's sitting out there in the audience. He's the one with all these fantastic casts. That's my other friend there, Dax Rushlow. This is the charter membership of Team Squatchachusetts. That's Bob Gimlin, from the famous Patterson-Gimlin footage. This was in 2013, our first conference that we went to in Ohio. Dave says to me, he says, hey, let's go out to Ohio. I'm like, all right. We don't have tickets. We don't have a hotel. We basically crashed the place. We didn't even have money to get home. I had to sell T-shirts to make up for the gas money to get home. But that's kind of how we started our group, because I realized, just like the UFO people, you have others that share that common thread. And we're all looking for the same answers. We're all intellectuals. We're curious. I want to know what I saw that night. I know I saw something. So Dave and Dax, we really got this team going. So out in the field we go, and we start noticing things like these. We call them stick structures or glyphs. Anybody here ever seen one of these in the woods? I see a few hands out there. There's a couple of people that dismiss these, and then there's a couple of people that really have a lot of faith in these. There's a guy in Vermont named Chris Noel. He's written a book about these, and he categorizes them into different things. This one here, I call this one a pointer. Doesn't this look like it's pointing at something? All these other ones are standing up, but this one seems to be pointing at something. Is this a road sign? Is this something that's left behind from one creature to tell another creature something? These are made by great apes in the Congo. They've been seen by scientists making these things to show dominance, like alpha male dominance. I'm the big, strong guy. Look what I can do. These are right here in Massachusetts, all over the place. Right here in Leominster. We've seen these things right here in Leominster. Here's another one. This one's in my backyard. If you look here, this is my maple syrup lines right here. This thing showed up one day while I was putting up my maple syrup lines. And I said, okay, that's a little creepy. So I started leaving stuff out there. One day I left a bag of apples out there. The next morning I came out, all the apples were gone except for 2, and the bag was spun all up again. Couldn't quite figure that one out, so I stopped leaving apples there. Started seeing these in the front lawn. Okay. This one here has a 5-foot stride. I followed it for 1/4 of a mile until they disappeared. The snow was actually melting while I was out there. This one here is an 18-inch track. I think I have another. Yep, these are the 2 that are right behind my house that were melting. That's actually my footprint. Whoops, sorry. That's actually my footprint right there. If you look up here, this is a smaller print than this one. So Dr. Meldrum from the University of Idaho took a really good look at these, and he feels as though this is a different creature than this one. But because of the imprint that was left there, he thinks that these are legitimate Sasquatch tracks because of the suspected activity that's also gone on at the property. These were gone within an hour, so I really had a hard time documenting them. And I really wasn't knowledgeable about how to properly document things. I should have put a scale item in here, like I did in the previous slide, so to show the size. These things started showing up at the back of my house. A golf ball. I don't golf. My neighbors don't golf. these little sticks in different, I would take them, put them apart, I'd wake up the next morning, they're back together again. I didn't tell anybody about this, so I know nobody was messing with me. No, none of my neighbors knew about what I thought was going on at the property. Little rocks are being left. Every time I would leave something, a candy bar, a sandwich, they seem to like Uncrustables. You know those awful things you feed your kids? Yeah, so I volunteer at the food bank from time to time, and if stuff's expired, I have to throw it away. I'm like, no, my neighbor's got a couple of pigs. I'll take those expired ones. You know, if I told them I was leaving them out for Sasquatch, they would have kicked me out of there. Well, every time I would leave something out there at this one particular spot, I would get something left on my doorstep. And I didn't recognize what an interesting thing that was going on. I actually was terrified from it because, oh my God, there's a possible 8-foot tall ape man running around my house eating my sandwiches. A lot to comprehend, right? So I joined the BFRO, which is a national group, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. Those of you that are fans of finding Bigfoot, you heard a lot about the BFRO in there because Matt Moneymaker, one of the cast members, is the head of that. Dave and I became the first 2 BFRO researchers in Massachusetts in many, many years. What we came across was a backlog of over 200 sightings in Massachusetts. These are the ones, this is called flats. So these are the cases, I had to blur it out because we have to sign confidentiality agreements and we really can't share this. These are my active cases, and these are brand new cases that nobody's even looked at yet. So I have 23 open cases that I'm dealing with. I've already closed out about 30 or 40 of them. Some of them are pretty ridiculous. I saw Bigfoot draining threes out on my kid's basketball hoop. Well, okay, haha, thanks for the entertainment. Delete. But then again, some of these are pretty legitimate. Dave and I have done enough of these to know we can pretty much feel it out just reading the report. And then if people contact us back, we'll go out and meet them in the field. Unfortunately, what these are, they're just stories. It's an event that's already happened, but to me, it's raw data. And any scientist will tell you raw data eventually will show patterns. And that's what we're trying to do. There's a lot of stuff that you can see if you go to the BFRO website. You can read the reports that are posted, but there's about 150 that you don't see that we're either working on or we just don't have enough information. They keep us pretty busy. So this is one of my favorite cases here. The Quabbin. Everybody knows about the Quabbin, right? The Quabbin Reservoir is about 120,000 acres. From one end to the other is about 18 miles. Back in the 30s, I think I have some stats here, yeah. So, I don't have it here. So, let's see, it was built in from 30 to 39. They tore down 4 towns. It was Dana, Enfield, Prescott, and Greenwich. They basically moved all the buildings out of town. They dug the cemeteries up. They moved the bodies. They burned down the ones that they couldn't move. They put a mile-long dam up, and they flooded them. It took 5 years to fill up. It's where Boston and all the bigger cities get their water from. There's a pipe that goes from the Quabbin up to Wachusett, and then the Wachusett Reservoir gravity fills down into Boston area. This right here is the Prescott Peninsula. Post 9/11, it is off limits to everybody except the park rangers. This is where we get most of our sightings in western Massachusetts, is out in this area from either the people that work there or the people that aren't supposed to be in there. One of the other interesting facts about this, they filmed Super Troopers 2 up there. There's them while they were filming the cast. This is my good friend Tom Yamarone from California. We were out there doing some squatching, and we actually watched them film one of the scenes from the movie. We gave them some T-shirts and some stickers, and it was very interesting out there. So if you ever watch Super Troopers 2 and they're filming along the Quabbin, that's one of the squatchiest places around. So we talk about this Prescott Peninsula here, and The only way in is a small access road up here that's all gated, and there's a guy there that keeps an eye on things. I parked there one day. Within 2 minutes, he came out, "Oh, you can't park here. I'm going to call the rangers." So I left. The rangers have asked me not to go out there. I may or may not spend time out there. I wouldn't want to compromise myself by saying that. Another spot where we have a tremendous amount of activity is right here, right by the dam. You can actually see the dam from the satellite. That's how big it is. Over here is a small, they call that the Good Enough Dike. I think it's named after one of the engineers, Good Enough. But this is the main dam. This is over a mile long. You used to be able to drive across it, but post 9/11, they shut it off. Right here is where the two rivers come together, the Swift River and the Ware River, W-A-R-E. It is a fantastic fishing spot right there. It's catch and release only, so you're going to see 24 to 30-inch trouts. You're going to see some of the best fishing ever. The water is crystal clean. It's very deceptive. If you're in waders and you step out, you could be actually over your head because it looks a lot deeper than it is, and it is ice cold. I think the warmest that water gets is in the 50s, so the fish love it there. Back, Dave, did you go on this investigation with me? No, it was Eric and Tim, I think. So this was back in August of last year. Two fishermen were there at night. You can get a permit to go in there at night and fish. And they were in their waders about waist deep, right in this little area here. So if you look closely, you'll see the two rivers where they come together. This one here drains out of the bottom of the reservoir. They call this the Y pool. It makes a Y. It's about 6 to 7 feet deep, and it's ice cold. So there's the Y right there. Again, so that red line right there indicates the path that this alleged Sasquatch took. They were standing right here in the water. It was about 10 o'clock at night with a full moon. They heard the creature. It walked down. It ducked underneath the bridge. We measured the bridge. The bridge was 9 feet 2 from where the creature was standing to the bottom of the bridge. The creature actually had to duck its head to get under the bridge. I think I have the video here. So I'm going to play. Do you know how to play? Can you play the video? Nope. This is the video from the witness. There's the bridge I was talking about right there. So he's standing where the creature was. This guy was nuts. That water's like 45 degrees. This is how far they were away from it. Within 35 feet or so. Sorry, I don't know why the audio is not coming through. There we go. So that's how close they were to the creature. So coincidentally, the other witness, we always separate the witnesses when we talk to them. He gave the exact same story. He works for somebody who is friends with someone from our team. So we were able to verify that this story happened. They didn't just concoct this to call us up and waste our time. To this day, these two guys, they won't go back there and fish. They just don't want to run into that creature again. They said that creature, in their words, was that creature could have owned us because they were vulnerable. They felt so vulnerable in their waders, just standing there in the water. They didn't have a phone. Of course, they never have no one ever has a camera with them when they see a Bigfoot, right? So this is not far from that sighting. This is one of our researchers here. We find these geometric things all over the place. I guess this is a larger version of the stick structure. This thing here covered about 2 acres, and they were all intertwined, and they were all jammed in the ground. You could argue the wind might have done this, but some of these patterns here are pretty spectacular. They seem to have geometric shapes to them. And we find these in little pockets where we have sightings. What do they mean? We don't know. No one's ever seen a Sasquatch building one of these. No one's ever seen a human being building one of these. So we're there, somebody else could have been there. Just because we didn't see a human build it, I just think people would have something better to do with their time than to go into the Quabbin and build these things. What's interesting, though, is you can go to Vermont and find these. You can go to Maine and find these. You can go to Oregon and find these. You can go to Pennsylvania and find these. It's not one person perpetuating the biggest hoax on us. There's a pattern here. There's documented similarities, congruences, if you call them, throughout the country of these stick structures. What do they mean? We don't know. Maybe it's a road sign. I mean, how many road signs did you pass coming here? Stop signs, street signs, yield signs, right turn only, left turn only. Maybe that's what these are. Stay out of here. There's an alpha male here. Or, oh, there's a female here. I'd like to meet somebody. Is this their version of Match.com? I don't know. So this is us up at the Quabbin. These are some of our dedicated researchers here. We go out quite often, and everybody is always welcome to come with us. As long as you got a good pair of shoes and you're not going to sue us if you fall down, we encourage you to come on out with us. We don't have a lot of answers. We have more questions than you guys do. What we do have is a lot of experience in the field of where not to go. I can tell you 1,000 places where not to find a Sasquatch. If I knew where to find a Sasquatch, I probably wouldn't be standing up here tonight. I would be out there experiencing it with them. We've had quite a few encounters up here, but they're just brief. Haven't been able to establish any type of habituation like I did have going on at my property at one point. Here's another report. This came in directly through our team, through our website. Again, we're at the Quabbin, probably about a quarter mile from that other sighting. That's not very far. This blue arrow here shows the height of the creature standing next to this tree. I am 220 feet away from where the witness was standing versus where the creature was. The two people that saw this, the gentleman, he's a professor at Harvard, made us swear that we would never divulge his identity. His girlfriend, she's a well-respected member of the educational community as well. They were hiking down to one of the local water spots at the Quabbin one day. On the way out, the man was just ahead of the woman. She kept looking back and catching the glimpse of this white, gray, 8-foot-tall creature peeking around the trees, like it was following her. As they would go, it would go from tree to tree to tree to tree, and it followed them all the way back to their car. She couldn't get his attention because he was a little bit too far ahead. She kept like, psst, psst, hey, there's something following me. By the time they got out to the car, the creature had either lost interest or just moved on. So he never got a look at it. But he told us the same story that she did. They were both pretty shooken up. Both, I feel, pretty credible witnesses. So Dave and I went back there, and this is the gentleman here. We find this up in the tree. Now this guy's tall. He's about 6'4". He can barely reach this. This is a dog treat, like a dog pull with a rope on it, that you play tug of war with your dog. It's way up here in the tree, wound up in the tree. We couldn't reach it. He had to jump up to grab it and pulled it down. That was right where the sighting was. So coincidence? Possibly. Sasquatch? Possibly. Not everything is Sasquatch to us, but we do have Sasquatch on the brain. That's what we're doing out there. Incidentally, this guy really isn't a nice guy. He's kind of a jerk. He took all of my stories and wrote a book about it. So don't buy his book. Sorry. So Squatchachusetts progresses. We've been all over the country. Dave and I have gone to Oregon, Washington, California, Pennsylvania, Ohio, all over New England, upstate Maine. God, we've driven to Maine where I thought we were actually in Canada. We've talked to hundreds of witnesses. We've experienced some great stuff in the woods. there's been many a times that Dave and I have gone running out of the woods laughing, going, oh my God, that was terrifying but fantastic at the same time. We've had trees pushed over. We've been screamed at. We've had rocks thrown at us. 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We've been stopped by the state police on back roads, wondering what the heck we're up to. We're like, oh, we're squatchers. She's like, all right, out of the car. You know, we spent an hour on the side of the road one night with a state trooper explaining to her about Bigfoot in Massachusetts. And she told us to have a good night and to move along. So that was an interesting night. How do you get a hold of us? Squatchachusetts.com. This is the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. I don't know if this was the first one. No, this was like our 3rd or 4th one that we went to. I don't know who these people are that photobombed us. But this is the team here. This is Tom Yamarone from California. John Kirk, he's a cryptozoologist. He actually studies the lake monsters. Anybody heard of Ogopogo? That's the Canadian version of the lake monster. He's been on In Search Of, quite a few other things. And there's Bob Gimlin. But Tom and John have been very good mentors to us, and they make us, stick to scientific protocols. We've had some good times with these people. Everybody know this guy? James Bobo Fay from Finding Bigfoot, one of our mentors. He's actually coming out here next month to do a Bigfoot expedition. It's called Bobo's Bigfoot Tours, and we're gonna help host it out in Western Mass. If you're interested in one heck of a weekend, you can go to his Facebook page and register for the event. There's some fees involved, but they feed you and they put you up in your lodging. But Dave and we drove up the California coast with Bobo. We went squatching in the redwoods with him. You won't find a more knowledgeable person about the history of Sasquatch and the sightings, at least on the West Coast. They visited, I think, every continent during the filming of Finding Bigfoot. They did 100 episodes. I think it went on for 10 seasons, possibly 8 seasons. He's been a good mentor to us. A couple more of our team members. This was one of our events up in Western Massachusetts. It's called Squatchtoberfest. We were going to do it again this year, but one of the speakers had a conflict and he couldn't make it out. I call this one Ponch and John back together again. Turns out Eric Estrada is a huge Bigfoot fan. Dave and I did a Comic-Con. I said, well, let's give this a try. We actually had more witnesses come forward at a Comic-Con than we did at all the other conferences we've ever been to. And Eric came out and he took some sweatshirts and never paid for them. And we went out, had a bite to eat with him. Super nice guy. I still keep in contact with him by email. Hopefully someday he comes out here and we can take him out in the woods. Larry Wilcox was there too. He wasn't a very pleasant person. So this is Dave and I out in Oregon, out in the Suslaw National Forest. It's one of the squatchiest places out there too. Every year they have a bunch of researchers from all over the country get together. We share ideas. We show each other what we don't have, which is not much. And it's a good time to network with your peers. One of the best times I've had with my good friend Dave out there. This is on one of our expeditions. This was, oh God, that was out in Washington, I think, right, Dave? Yeah. That was right at the base of Mount Rainier, so we got to do some squatching out there. That was a lot of fun. This is when Dave and I were part of the Finding Bigfoot episode in Whitehall, one of the squatchiest places this side of the Mississippi. Alexander talked about the famous sighting there in the 70s by the multiple police agencies. If you don't know much about the Beast of Whitehall, look into it. It's fantastic stories out there. There's some really credible witnesses. There's Ronnie LeBlanc from Monsterland. We took Bobo down to Patriot Stadium. That was a fun day. This was at another one of our events. There's Kathy and Dave. This is the Quabbin. There's that peninsula I was telling you about out there. We tried to sneak out there that day, and there was 2 Ranger trucks parked at the gate, so we weren't able to get out there. There's Mount Rainier. And this is interesting here. This is the new Mount Rainier. If you see, it's forming right in front of it, and they're a little bit nervous about it because if this thing erupts, it'll take out the entire city of Tacoma, Washington. They have about an hour's notice, so that's not good. This was a fun day, Bigfooting at Fenway Park. I go to Fenway quite a bit. I have really good seats there, and I've made friends with a few players over the years. And Dustin Pedroia, one of our Golden Glove guys from the Red Sox, is a huge Sasquatch fan. Every time I see him, he's always giving me thumbs up. He's got my Sasquatch stickers on his locker in the clubhouse. He wanted to meet Bobo, so I had Bobo come out. This is when they were filming the episode of in Maine for finding Bigfoot. Pedroia has a Sasquatch right on his bat, which is pretty cool. So he gave Bobo a bat, says, keep it squatchy. I wanted the bat, but Bobo kept it. So, but I thought that was pretty cool that he supports the Sasquatch in such a great way. There's another case, BFRO case. This one, there's Dave and the witness right there. This is from 2017. I like this case because it ties in with the case right after this one. How am I doing on time, all right? Okay, thanks. The audio okay? Great. Nobody sleeping on me? Okay. So if you look back there, you'll see a 8-foot-tall frog man right there. See him? So that I'd rather run into a Sasquatch than a giant frog man, because I don't think I could outrun a frog man. So this lady's a school teacher, highly educated, and walks this route on a regular basis. This is up in Williamstown, Massachusetts, which is the corner of the New York and Vermont line up in Massachusetts. The Green Mountains, well, this is the beginning of the Adirondacks right here, and the Green Mountains are right up here to the north. This is a cornfield. So this is March, so this is right after the winter thaw. Her sighting was back in January of this year. Her and her dog were walking down this road, and she heard a grunt. She looked off to her right, and she sees, this is how close she was to the creature. That's Dave. So she was about 50 to 60 feet away from the creature. The sun was just about to go down, so there was very little ambient light. It turned and looked at her, grunted, and just took off like a rocket. She said no human being could have run as fast as that creature took off at. Her dog did nothing. It wouldn't bark, it wouldn't cry, it just froze. She was paralyzed with fear, and the dog was just, usually a dog will start barking or try to go after something. The dog wouldn't do anything. So I really like her story, except it's just a story, and we were there too late to find any trace evidence. There was all kinds of impressions in the ground, but this was 3 months after the event had taken place. But I like this case because she's a very credible person. She's followed us since this. She comes out every now and then with us in the field because she's fascinated by what she saw, just like I am. She's looking for the same answers I am. This case is about a quarter of a mile away from that sighting. So this one's posted on the BFRO website. 2 elderly people are driving up Route 8, which is right here. This will take you up to Vermont. I think the Vermont border is like right here. So you have Williamstown, and then you have Pownell, Vermont up here. They were driving along the road about a quarter of a mile from where this woman had her sighting. This was about 6 months prior to her sighting. So this was right in the midsummer time. They're driving their RV. She's in the passenger seat. She looks out the left window and sees this giant ape creature doing the atypical walk. Swinging like this. And it's going at a pretty good pace across the field. She says, "Oh my God, look at that." The husband looks out the window and nearly crosses the double yellow line. They were going so fast that he couldn't pull over right away. They finally found a clearing, pulled over, gathered their thoughts, turned their big RV around, and went back, and the creature was gone. So that is only about a quarter of a mile from where that woman saw the same looking creature. Now this one's even more interesting because this is only a mile away from that sighting, about 6 months before the previous sighting. These are the tracks that were found. I have some problems with these tracks. I'm going to just show you a couple of them. This one is actually underwater, which I don't think anybody's ever seen one underwater before. Okay, so these are a series of tracks, and I'm going to back up and tell you why I like them and why I don't like them. So the storyline behind this guy, he's a volunteer firefighter. He's a community member. He drives commercial vehicles during the day. At night, he drives a bus. So he's a hardworking guy. He's a community member. I don't feel like he would be the type that perpetuate a hoax, never mind an elaborate hoax such as this. What I like about this is the toes. See how there's spaces in between the toes? They call this bulbous toe. Means somebody that's not wearing shoes. You and I, we wear shoes and our toes are crunched up together. If you feel your toes, they're flat in between there, and that's from wearing shoes. If this is a real track, this creature or person that made this hasn't worn shoes probably ever. So, and then the other thing I like about it is there's some slipping here. See how it's kind of curved? If this was a wooden print, thank you. If this was a wooden print or this was like a little stomper like Ray Wallace used back to try to fool everybody, it would be pretty uniform. It's not uniform. And I also like the heel on this one because the heel is really deep. And you can't really tell, but there's a mid-tarsal break here, which means the foot flexes in the middle. We have an arch. Our foot doesn't flex in the middle. It is thought through the evidence that Dave has over here on the table that these creatures have, they call it a flexible foot, a mid-tarsal break. You can see the mid-tarsal break right here. A wooden stomper wouldn't leave a mid-tarsal break. Even if you tried, I don't think you could do it. If you went on to the next one, same toes, but different foot. Down here you got the big wide heel, and then right here you have the mid-tarsal break. You got a little slippage right here where the toes pushed forward. See, they went underneath the mud. I don't think you would see that with somebody that was faking that. Again, we don't know. I wasn't there to cast these. I would have loved to have casted these. Don't do this for scale. Don't step in a suspected track. If you see a track, please don't step in it and use your foot for a scale item. Use a credit card, use a tape measure, anything that you can do to help us document these things, and don't step in it with your foot, because this guy just ruined whatever evidence there might be here. This one looks a little too perfect for me. It almost looks like somebody took their palm of their hand and smushed it down, and it looks too narrow here for me. But this heel is super deep. And see them, they're right, 1, 2, 3, right, left, right. So this one here I like the most because it's wide, it's consistent, it's got the fat toes, it's got the mid-tarsal break, and the big toe is slipped underneath the mud here. And then if you look, it left a double impression. In my opinion, if somebody's going to hoax us with this, they're not going to have the knowledge of this unless they're really a serious researcher or investigator, because these are little details that not a lot of people are privy to in the community. So I think that these are a legitimate track. Why? Because they're only a mile from those other 2 sightings. So are all 3 of these people in on it? I doubt it. The congruences are there. The similarities are there. So yes, I think that these are all legitimate sightings in the same area up there in the corner of Vermont and New York. We currently have people up there on a regular basis. Matt Moneymaker actually tried to get Williams College to sponsor a Bigfoot club. They never called him back. So nobody wants to be known as the University Bigfoot, right? I don't think so. So what do we do to promote Sasquatch awareness? We do expeditions, we do these conferences, but I'm not a big fan of coming up and talking. I don't have a lot of stuff to share other than my experiences and my stories. I hope someday I'm in front of you with really rock solid evidence, because I want to be able to go, see, these things are real. I know they're real, I know they're out there, I don't know what they are. And I welcome everybody to join us on this really fun journey. Dave and I will tell you, we've had some of the best times ever. We've met people from all over the country. There isn't a state that Dave and I can't go to that we're not known, usually for good things. Sometimes there's a few hotels we're not allowed to go back to. But the experiences that we have alone are worth this journey, because we've made so many friends and so many great experiences that we would have never had if it wasn't for this great phenomena that we're chasing after. So we did a great expedition in 15. We did one in 16. We went to Savoy into October Mountain. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to just skip through again. These are two of the hot spots in western Massachusetts. This is Balance Rock, not too far from where my sighting is. Thank you. That's Dr. Esteban Sarmiento. You may know him from Monster Quest series and a couple other National Geographic. He's a world-renowned primatologist from Columbia University in NYU. He tagged along a few times with us. There he is there. So this kid started all the commotion up there in Savoy that day in 2016. He let out a whoop. We had wood knocks, we had whistles, we had yelling. And all of a sudden, I'm looking forward, and I see this black thing through the trees. I go like this. It goes like this. And phew, it took off through the trees. All we got was a quick glimpse of this tall, black creature. Where was this? A half a mile from my sighting 25 years earlier. So 3 people got a good look at it. What we did get, we got some tracks. We had 2 tracks that we casted with a 5-foot stride. You like those? My little crime scene markers, they look pretty cool. You can see the indentation. This is the problem in New England, is this is what it is. We got poison ivy, we got duff. We don't have nice sandbars here to get good tracks. So there's one of the casts. There it is right there. 18 inches long. There's your heel, your mid-tarsal break, and your toes, all right there. This is Tim, one of our researchers. That's my last slide here, but this was one of our encounters during our expeditions that we take people out on. This was in 2016, so 3 years ago. They're still up in the same places. They're around here. I encourage you, if you're really fascinated by this, to join a group, whether it's ours or somebody else's, and to be out there independently. You're probably not going to have as good a chance as an encounter as if you come out with us, because we've had years and years of bad luck of where not to go, and we've had some great luck and where to go. And what we try not to do is go back to the same place all the time. We don't want to stress these creatures out. We want to try to establish a rapport with them where they're safe with us, so we can maybe draw them in and document them. Is it going to happen in my lifetime? Probably not. They don't want anything to do with us. That's just my opinion. They just want to get on with their lives. If you look at us from their perspective, we've cut down the trees, we litter, we pollute, we make noise. Would you want anything to do with us if you were them? Probably not. So I think that they're just ingrained in everything to just avoid us. And when we do contact them, it's because they're not paying attention. These are just my theories, but my hypothesis is getting a little bit tighter every day, because every time we have these encounters, it's the same thing over and over again. So I got to wrap it up, but I encourage all of you that are interested in this subject, come on out with us. You can find us on Facebook. We have a horrible website, but you can reach us through that website. And anybody that wants to do a website, I'll give you a free t-shirt, because our website's really bad, but it's Squatchachusetts.com, trademark. And we'll have our stuff here all weekend. And if you want to buy a t-shirt and support our swag, we'd really appreciate that too. So thank you guys for having me here tonight. Thank you, Susan.